How's it going, everybody? Welcome to my first attempt at longer form YouTube content. I'm going to be making a piece out of shoe boxes and take you along for the process. I've been doing this kind of work for about 5 years. The last 3 or so have really been getting more into the material and the medium, making bigger scale pieces with more details, and that's what we're going to be doing in this video today. So what I've done is I've drawn kind of a rough sketch of the piece that I want to make. It's not sure how well you can see that here, but it's a skeleton or kind of a character with a bandana. He's eating breakfast. He's going to be smoking a cigarette. Unsure what we're going to do in terms of color palette. Materials, are, like I mentioned, are going to be shoe boxes, but we're going to kind of get into that and figure out what that is with all of the materials that you see behind me here. We have a full wall of boxes that we can use. We also have a lot of shoe boxes over here to the left, broken down already by color, by pattern, and by texture. So the first step is we're going to kind of determine what shoe boxes we want to use for each element of the piece, and we might kind of segment that out by segment of the piece, and then we'll just kind of go from there. We wing a lot of this throughout the process. It makes it fun, kind of keeps it unpredictable, and we'll kind of get going and see where it goes. All right, step one. First things first, we want to figure out what we want to use for kind of the subject of the piece. So I'm going to start out with kind of looking for the skeleton here. My initial thoughts are going with something that's maybe obviously white for the skeleton, but I also had a thought of going something that is a little more brown, just to kind of give it more of an aged look. I also kind of plan on making the background white, so that's something to consider, is if there's not a lot of contrast there between the subject of the piece and the background, it's going to have kind of a harder time standing out, being visible from afar, etc. So as I had mentioned, I have a lot of the pieces, or a lot of boxes, already broken down by color. So right here we have your blacks, grays, browns, kind of your neutral tones. So I'm going to pull that box out here. Furthermore, on the wall back here, we have a lot of different boxes. So again, whites, a little bit of everything. But I guess how I like to do it is I don't like to break down boxes, new boxes, unless I don't have the color already broken down, or unless I am looking to use a certain piece of branding or logo from a box that's already on my wall. So for instance, if I wanted to use this Jordan silhouette here on these black toe ones, I would use that. However, I don't need to use it for this piece, for example. One box that sticks out a lot to me right now is this Air Max 1 box that has kind of that bandana texture on it, and I'm thinking for the bandana on the subject here, that might be a cool look. However, I might also choose to kind of carve that out by hand and make my own design on that. So we'll see, but definitely going to pull that one for future use as a potential. The other thing maybe to consider when going with the skeleton, you have a really bright white like this Converse box here, or you have kind of an off-white like this Amamanier box. If I did the skeleton in white, I would definitely go with more of a milky, creamy tone, again, to maybe offset that white background. But that's the fun of it, is that we don't know when we get to the background. We might actually end up using more of a texture or a pattern. So I have a box here of plastic sleeves, tissue papers, and etc. So that's a box that I'll kind of dive into if we need it. So I'm going to kind of gather some materials, and we'll check back when we start to carve the first piece. Before we get in too deep on that one, let's take a look at the piece that I am about to finish. So kind of the same idea here. We have a sneaker butt is what I'm calling it, but again, built completely out of shoe boxes. Pretty big piece here. We had a lot of metallic silvers, grays, blues, obviously in this one. Here is the kind of the housing for the piece. You'll have this backing here, which will kind of secure the piece in place against this shoebox matting, which will keep it at the same elevation so that there's no kind of dip in the subject as you view it, it'll kind of look flat. It'll kind of be positioned like this with the robot on top of it. Went with a black kind of signature box or default Jordan box shoebox matting for it there. The reason being is just to kind of keep it neutral, but also we have a custom metal blue frame coming, so it will kind of mirror the subject matter of the piece, bring it all together really nicely. This one probably took about 45 to 50 hours over a little 2, 3, 4 hour sessions. So yeah, that's kind of the idea of what we want to get to with this new piece here. Okay, we are at the workbench. As mentioned, first thing I'm going to do is just go through the box here of broken down boxes already and just pull anything that looks interesting, excuse me, in terms of texture, pattern, color. So again, we're going to kind of shoot for something like this in these browns for the skeleton. Ideally, we're going to find 2 browns that are different values and tones. So I'm looking for kind of one lighter, one darker. If I can find a third one, that would even be better, just to kind of create a little bit more, more of an interesting dynamic in that skull. If I need to go with a cream or a white or potentially a gray, we're going to do that. Here's a good example of, this is a Kyrie box, the inside of it actually. And this would be something where I would look for light tones, this basketball kind of graphic here to cut up and integrate into the skull, just to show a little bit more finesse, include some additional techniques in it. Like painters, I have my own little tips and tricks, or tricks rather, just things that I've learned over working with the material that I like doing to show that I really do this, so to speak. So again, we have 3 different brown boxes. All of them are relatively the same tone. This one's a little bit lighter. We got the Nocta Drake box here, and then an N354, which is kind of like an outdoor trail running model, I'm assuming. But again, yeah, we're looking for more interesting colors, some different tones. Off-white box, same shit. So it might be a little more difficult than we thought, right? Here is a Topaz 4 box that might have some play. I don't know if you saw that. Topaz 4 box, inside is red. Luckily, I've gotten pretty decent at arranging these by value. So blacks should be in the back. We don't need any of those right now. Browns in the middle. A lot of nice branding on some of these browns. Here we have a Jordan logo. Here we have, see, this is nice. We have little Nike swooshes on the Vomero Roams. So that could be something. Showing a little variation. This is from the Space Hippies, the 003s, I believe, the high tops. A little big in terms of the branding. It's going to be bigger than our entire head of our skull for the most part in terms of width, so we won't go with that. So yeah, I'm going to kind of get to it, and we'll check back in once I kind of have a palette for us. Okay, so we kind of did end up going with the brown. So what we ended up gathering, we have a lot of this kind of natural brown color, as I'll refer to it in the future. A lot of that'll kind of be the base of it. We did find a couple of darker brown tones. I believe these are from a Travis box, probably the retro ones. Actually, probably not. Maybe the 6s? I don't know. It might be from the 6s. We have the back of the Topaz box, which kind of goes with this textured, patterned kind of side of things here. And then we have that Vomero box that has those little Nike swooshes on it, which I think will be a nice addition for some detailing. And ironically, as I was saying, I wouldn't use this box in the cut a few clips ago. I think I am going to pull in some of this background, maybe even try to work in his head, Jordan's head that is, into the skull at some point. But I like a lot of these brown textures and patterns on here. I think just including some stuff like that, it feels risky at the time, but I think it really does give the piece some added character, shows that you're taking some risks with it as well. So anytime I can kind of make one of those calculated risks in a piece, it does feel good at the end of it. It always pays off in my opinion. So you just gotta go for it. So yeah, so next step will be we'll do some carving here. We'll figure out what we're gonna use for the skull base, and we'll get to it in the next clip here. All right, before we begin, here's the sketch. Again, kind of going with an organic color palette. I want browns. We'll do some contrast in there, whether that's like a teal or a blue shirt. Teal tabletop, we'll see what happens. Maybe we can find an ITSB box for that teal. Or we might just continue and go with something more diner-esque. Maybe we do like a checkerboard. We'll figure it out. But before I come in here and cut, I'm probably gonna start on this eye here. Doing the black of the inner skull, and then I'll extend outward either to the left or the right. I'm gonna have to redraw this before I start cutting. It isn't as clean as I want. This was the rough sketch. Before I begin, I will kind of create everything one more time in terms of sketching it to make sure it's super clean and comes together nicely. Okay, so the first piece that we're going to cut is this top half of the skull, the face here. Instead of using this box and using the brown area down here, I'm actually going to integrate some of the branding up top. Again, I don't mind doing this. I think it adds more of an interesting look to it. It also shows obviously that the work is made out of shoeboxes when you include some of the branding and logos. So we're gonna carve this out. Once we have this shape out of the brown box, we're then going to go in and then carve out these eyes, nose, add the details and some of the depth with additional colors and black for the eye holes. So let's carve this out and we'll get back after that. Okay, so now we have the skull cut out with the eye holes and the nose. Essentially what I'm doing here is I'm cutting, unfortunately, every piece twice, carving it out of the skull, and then I will grab this black shoebox here and I will cut and fill it accordingly. We'll do a two-tone in the larger eye socket to kind of get the indentation here, or the other angle of the eye or the inside of the skull, and we'll do black in these two here. So we'll carve this, get back to it. Okay, now we have the first piece of the skull completed here, and you'll see we have that two-tone eye with the brown and the black. What we're going to do now is we're going to kind of do a little bit of this indentation for the gum line, but we're going to add a little bit of this textured box here from the Black Toe ones. One thing to note on a Retro 1 box is that the cover of the box is actually a little bit thinner than the rest of the corrugate. So if I were to use a piece of the cover, I would have to actually double layer that to have it meet the same height requirements as the existing pieces. So we're going to use a piece of the sides here. I'm going to cut this up, put it in here in the shadow, and then we'll see what that looks like. All right, so we have a good chunk of the skull done now. Show you what that looks like right here. We have the little bit of a drop shadow from the Retro 1 Black Toe box, as well as some of the other eye holes and negative space. What we're going to do here for the teeth of the subject, we're actually going to turn that into a gold grill. So we have a Nike SB box here from when they were releasing the gold boxes. There's not a lot of gold or metallic shoe boxes in general, so we're going to cut out the teeth, stencil them onto the box, and then obviously fit them into the skull. These are notoriously hard to work with. There is kind of another layer as opposed to the brown box, which is just, it is what it is. There's no additional layers that's printed on. This is a thin layer on top of this box, so in some cases it frays, so we have to cut very carefully. So let's kind of get going here. I'll show you what that looks like when I have one of the sets in, or maybe both. All right, gang, it was bound to happen once. One thing I should have checked before cutting this last piece was checking the contrast between the two colors. I don't like that there's not enough contrast there, especially from far. It wouldn't be as readable in terms of, you know, the pop that I want to see in that grill. I did cut the piece. It took about 15 minutes. Yeah, didn't turn out. So we're going to pivot and bring in this A Ma Maniere panel from an A Ma Maniere box. Has a nice shiny silver tone to it. Still going to get that grill effect, but he's going to have a silver grill now. So a little bit thicker box here than the SB box. So this is going to be even more of a difficult cut for me. But yeah, we're gonna get after it, and this is gonna look much better when all said and done. So minor setback for a major comeback. Okay, so we just added that piece in here. We're gonna rock with it as we get a little bit more and see how that all pans out. We're gonna do the bandana right now. So thought is to find something that, can't grab it here, find something that pops to contrast the browns. So a couple options. We have the top of an undefeated Air Force One box here. Might be cool to work in that wording. We have the top of a Joe Fresh Goods box with New Balance, the camo, although there might be a few too many similarities with just the black and the black. However, I do like the camo pattern. We have another Joe Fresh Goods box here. Thought would be to maybe ombre one of the sides into the bandana. So I kind of like going from dark to light or light to dark, depending on which orientation we have. And then finally a concepts box, kind of falling apart already, but a lot of good tie-dye-esque patterns on this. The problem with this one is it's an extremely thick box, so kind of sounds like you're knocking on a door. So really hard to cut through, obviously, with my tool of choice here, a dull X-Acto blade. So we'll kind of make a determination. This one seems too cool to not at least try to make a piece and see how it fits. So I'm thinking this one. If I want to go something a little bit more simple, I might turn to the red and the yellow ombre. So we'll see what we choose. Okay, quick check-in with the bandana. We ended up going with the Joe Fresh Goods New Balance box. Reason being, I like the simplicity of it. I also did attempt to cut into the Concepts box. Extremely thick. Probably was taking anywhere from 3 to 4 minutes just for one cut. So wasn't time consuming, and I didn't love the accuracy on it. However, we did end up creating a really dynamic bandana for the skull. What we did, as I mentioned, we took the Joe Fresh Goods box, and then we grabbed this Jordan retro box, a little bit of a thinner top, and we ended up kind of carving. You can see some of the line work there. And we treated the bandana with a nice pattern to it. So now we'll attach it to the skull, and now we have a great contrast here with some detail. I guess the way I look at every element of the piece is just kind of taking a little bit of extra care to it to make each element stand out on its own. So thus far we have a skull that just has really clean line work and cuts. Then we have a little bit of a pattern here with the Retro One box, and now we're going to add the bandana. So 3 really dynamic elements coming together in one piece so far, and we're only, I don't know, what do you think? 10% done. The hands are obviously going to be really fun. Obviously not, but a lot of detail left. The breakfast scene will be really fun to create. So we'll attach this, and then we'll kind of do the top of the skull now and report back when we're onto the neck. Okay, so we have a good thing going here. The next step is going to be to kind of make this hang tag style earring that I want to put on him. I've vetted some boxes, so I'm thinking that I want to integrate this smiley face or this alien, potentially some of these head sketches as well. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a base layer for it in probably a black Retro One box, so it's nice and thin. See how it stacks up to the elevation of the other pieces, and then probably come in and cut out one of these or both of them and see how it looks over the top here. Again, keeping color and contrast in mind. But yeah, I want to do something a little different as opposed to just doing a standard pattern color, or you know, maybe the easy way out would just be like a Nike check or something like that. I want to give it a little bit more personality as I feel like this piece calls for it. So I'm going to cut these out, and then we'll kind of vet out which one we like more. Quick post earring update here. We did go with the alien piece. I liked it over the black background there, starting to work in some of this neck going downward. But yeah, we tried a few different options for the earring. That one ended up being the most fitting for the piece. So we'll kind of continue here. The neck is probably going to take a while with a lot of these small gaps in here, blacks and browns going down, and then we'll get to the shirt and we'll start tackling that. Okay, reporting back in here. Let's take a look at what we have accomplished so far with this piece. We have the entire head done. So we have the skull, some of those shiny teeth, the neck, the bandana, a lot of detail packed into there. And then we recently had finished the hand with the cigarette. This one took a lot longer than I had expected, but the cuts are extremely fine. The details are nice. You can see there's a little bend in that wrist just by the way that it's taped together. There's a nice gap in the bones as well. And the cigarette came out extremely clean. We're probably gonna end it here for part one, just to make sure that this video isn't an hour and a half long, and I wanna make sure that I go into enough detail to show you the entire process. So let's take a close-up look at where we're at, and then we'll see you back in part two.